Well, hello and welcome to another episode of today's Conversations on Leadership, powered by Life University. I'm Dr. Gilles LaMarche, your host, and I'm really thrilled to have pretty much a next door neighbor to Life University as my special guest today. I've had an opportunity to interact with this gentleman on a few occasions here in the city of Marietta and across Cobb County, and I would describe him as a true gentleman. Every interaction I've had with him has been so genuine and real. And I'll tell you, when you meet leaders at that level, and you'll understand when I introduce him, when I say at that level, is this gentleman is a true leader. He is the Vice President and General Manager of the Air Mobility and Maritime Missions line of business at Lockheed Martin Aeronautics Company in Marietta. He's also Site Manager of the 5,000 employee facility here in Marietta. He is a 27-year Lockheed Martin employee, and he most recently led the Integrated Fighter Group. He also previously served as deputy for that group, as well as deputy for the F-16 program. Oh my gosh, would I love to have a ride in one of those someday.
Wouldn't we all, right?
As leader of the Air Mobility and Maritime Missions Organization, Mr. McLean is responsible for the C-130, the LM-100J, the C-5, and the P-3 programs. He also serves as the leader for the Marietta, Georgia facility and oversees subassembly sites in Clarksburg, West Virginia, and Meridian, Mississippi. Marietta is one of Lockheed Martin's 3 main aircraft production facilities. This facility has been in operation under the Lockheed or the Lockheed Martin name since January of 1951. That's before you and I were both born, Rod. Currently, it has just under 5,000 people employed there, making it one of Metro Atlanta's top 25 employers. So I am thrilled and honored that you've taken the time to join us, Mr. Rod McLean. So honored to have you with me today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So a couple of questions, we'll get right into it.
Okay.
So what do you see as your role, obviously as a large leader in this community, as it relates to supporting your team, their loved ones, and also supporting the community? Because I know Lockheed Martin is a great community partner.
Right. Well, Lockheed Martin has been an integral part of Cobb County for quite some time, and I see my role as very critical. The biggest part that I can do in supporting my team and supporting the community and their families is really keeping the business viable. You know, we've been very fortunate that the C-130 has been in production for more than 65 years. So it has been the backbone of the Marietta facility, and we do see opportunities in front of us. But we all know that the airplane will not probably sail forever. So we're in the process now of really positioning our site to support future opportunities. It's going to be very competitive, but we feel we're very well positioned to do that. So that's what we're doing to keep the business viable, to ensure we have a place of continued work for our employees, but also for the community. You know, we do recognize that we have to be a key partner for the community. We recognize our role as a corporate citizen, and so we've over the last several years have donated more than $1 million to the community in various different venues. Our focus is really on veterans and also on K through 12 education. And other outreach opportunities working through the Cobb Community Foundation. And certainly this past year has been a very challenging year with the pandemic. So we've been very fortunate to be able to support many of those support organizations to ensure that they are also reaching out and helping those who have had challenges due to loss of jobs, inability to access food sources and things of that nature.
Yeah, certainly Lockheed Martin. I've been in Marietta now for 7 years, and Lockheed Martin certainly is a great corporate citizen, and you are a great reflection of that as the leader. So we thank you for all that you do and all the company does to support this area.
Right.
As it relates to leadership, right? This podcast on today's conversation is on leadership, going beyond.
Right.
And let's get into a little bit about Rod McLean himself.
Okay.
What are some of the most important decisions that you make as a leader in your life and for Lockheed Martin?
Yeah, I think some of the most important decisions I make is really, especially at this time, is how do I use my time? Your time is one thing that we all have. We all have the same amount, but what you do with it is really what sets an individual apart. And for me, leading a large site that I have, I can't interact with every single person, in the organization. And we have a number of programs that we have to make sure are successful in meeting our customer commitments. So making sure I'm spending my time wisely, engaging where I need to engage, motivating where I need to motivate, and making decisions where I need to make decisions is critically important. The second thing I would say is really selecting the right people. If you have the right leadership team, if you have the right folks in the key positions doing the right things, that can make my job easier, knowing that the folks I've put in the right positions are impacting the organization and driving the organization where it needs to go. So that's another critical element of making the right decisions, deciding the right people. And the last thing I'll probably say is sometimes it's not always about deciding, but it's about asking the right questions. Right, because that also helps others explore things and ensure they've thought through the second and third order effects so that the outcome is what we intend.
I love the answer, and it sort of segues into the next question I plan to ask you as it relates to an organization. As an organization gets larger, I mean, obviously you're the leader of a large organization, a segment of that organization with 5,000 employees under your guidance. But as an organization gets larger, there can be a tendency for the institution to sort of lose its inspiration, for the people that show up at the job site to not be as inspired as they otherwise could be. How do you keep that from happening? How do you keep your teams inspired?
Yeah, good point. I think the key really is keeping the customer's mission in perspective. That's one thing that at least Lockheed Martin and Marietta, and really Lockheed Martin as a whole, is something that we value and we put first in priority is responding to our customer and making our customers support their mission successfully. So we often have an opportunity. I myself have a chance to engage with the customer, and I bring back that feedback and I share that with the team. And many of our employees are themselves former veterans, are veterans or former active military personnel. So they understand, what we do, why we do what we do, and the importance every day to be all in and to deliver with excellence and to perform with excellence, so we're meeting our expectations. So really keeping it front and center as to, once again, the purpose, the why we're here and what we're doing, and the impact that we make across the globe helps to keep the team motivated. And so we keep that drive, keep the inspiration going. Because that's one thing that we try to do, is make sure they understand how our aircraft are used across the globe. One thing about the C-130 is it's operated by almost 70 different countries. So it certainly is an aircraft that is worldwide and has 17 different missions that it supports, from firefighting to troop transport to cargo. There's so many different things that it does, and we try to do all we can to keep that in front of our employees so they understand the purpose of their work and the impact that this aircraft has in the nation as well.
So when you lead, you have to show up ready. And so you mentioned about how you keep your people ready, you keep your people inspired. What does Rod do for Rod to show up ready?
Yeah, for me, it is about having a balance, because early in my career, I was all in, and then I got married and with children, and certainly your time commitment becomes a bit more challenging. And now that my kids are a little bit older, they're in high school right now, and the demands of the job are even more intense. I have to be really conscious, once again, about how I balance my time, because I too have to re-energize. And I know that I'm a more effective leader, when I get my rest. And also you have to find, what is your outlet that allows you to kind of free your mind, relax from work, to re-energize. And for me, I've always been a very athletic person. So I do enjoy riding my bike, going for a swim, and just being in the outdoors. I bought a mountain bike since I've been here, so I found quite a few new parks to go ride my mountain bike from time to time. So that allows me to recharge and re-energize, and therefore when I show up to work, I'm engaged, I'm alert, I'm attentive, and able to lead the organization.
What you just told me is that Rod understands that to be a great leader, Rod must take care of Rod.
Exactly. Self-care. That's something we've talked about quite a bit this past year. So it's
Exactly.
real.
Leaders must, because sometimes people that are young in leadership roles put themselves completely aside, and then they crash and they forget that if they don't take care of themselves, you can't help anyone until you help yourself. So I'm
That's
really
true.
glad to hear that Mr. Rod McLean knows how to take care of himself so that he can
Certainly.
continue to be a great leader. So going back to the organization, you were mentioning a while ago that there's going to be a shift. Obviously, you've been building this aircraft for a long time. Ingenuity is probably at the forefront of a lot of the work that you do. How do you encourage creative thinking within Lockheed Martin?
Right. Yeah, really the ideas come from the people closest to the work. We can't depend upon the senior leaders to come up with all the great ideas. It really is to allow folks to think creatively, giving them the space to do so, and inviting them to the table, encouraging that dialogue, and getting that input from them. One thing that we have embraced over the last several years is something called culture of accountability. And that really is basically empowering the workforce so they know that they have a voice. And the leadership's job is really to step back and enable them so they can thrive and do all they can to support the mission. But it all begins with creating the right experiences. That's the foundation of creating a culture where you have employees that feel empowered. We read this book called Change the Culture, Change the Game. And it really has been the foundational work in this practice because we wanted a certain result, but in order to get the result, it requires an action. But only actions are created if they believe in what they're doing. And those beliefs are based on experiences. So as a leadership team, our focus is creating the right experiences so our employees believe that we care in them, that we believe that they've got the right ideas. Therefore, they will act to bring those ideas forward to deliver the results that we want to obtain.
I read something just a couple days ago. It might have been actually this morning. It just feels like the day has run away on me, but that the best leaders lead by first taking care of themselves, and then by taking care of their people,
Right.
and then taking care of their customers. Because if we take good care of ourselves, we have a greater ability to take care of our people, who then
Right.
have a greater ability to take care of the client, which keeps us all employed.
Correct.
That seems to be what you were sharing with you right now.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe a closing question for our interaction today. What are you doing as a leader to ensure that you continue to grow and you continue to develop as a leader?
Right.
What can
I
our
think
listeners do for themselves?
Right. At least for me, I've got to continue to read, continue to be a student of leadership, and put into practice the things that I've learned, but still pausing to get feedback and to reflect on my actions. And did I get the results that I intended? It really is about having a growth mindset. And that's one thing that we've been trying to share and communicate with our leadership team more recently, recognizing that, hey, we're not going to have all the answers, but we have to be willing to explore the possibilities. And we may not get it right the first time, but a willingness to experiment. And then, like I said earlier, reflect on that engagement. Did we get the results that we wanted? What can we learn from that experience? And then continue to evolve. I'm in a constant state of discovery, learning, and reflection to ensure that, hey, am I making the impact that I need to make in order to take my organization, to take Lockheed Martin Marietta where it needs to go to be successful for the future.
Those were like fantastic nuggets, Rod. Any closing statement for our audience?
No, I'd just like to say thank you for taking the time, and I appreciate you all having the conversation with leadership, because it does make a difference. Have the right people in the right position really drives the right results. But it does require having a leader that's honest and has integrity, because leadership is all about influence, right? You can't, if you don't have those key characteristics, you're not going to be able to drive the team forward.
You heard it right here from Mr. Rod McLean. Honesty leads to greater influence. So a lot of nuggets shared by Mr. Rod McLean today. I hope that you put some of this into practice and you yourself become the leader that you know you can become. Thanks so much, Rod. It was a pleasure to have you with me today.
Okay. Thank you.